Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your podcast about Babylon 5. I am in the CNC, checking out the new Star Furies with my friend Lou.
Hello, everyone.
And Karen.
Hello.
And we are talking Ship of Tears. Very interesting title. Originally aired April 29th, 1996, written by J. Michael Straczynski, directed by Michael Veijer, which is a name that's coming up a little more often. And I think this was a pretty interesting one, and I can't wait to visit about it. Karen, quick thoughts.
Yeah, a lot of different arc threads in this one, and it was interesting seeing the whole enemy of my enemy as my friend thing playing out. And it was nice to see a great G'Kar performance as well. Yeah.
And Lou?
It was awesome to see Chekhov finally get to sit in the captain's chair.
Mm.
I thought Walter Koenig was excellent in this episode, and it was interesting that we finally got the payoff for why G'Kar gave Garibaldi the Book of Guan or whatever the hell it's
G'Kar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, someone mentioned that was probably a little bit of a slight inside joke that him in the captain's chair, because Chekhov.
Yep, it was for me.
Yeah, one of the things that Joe Straczynski has mentioned is that when it first was announced, they said, Chekhov in Babylon 5, why are you doing? And he said, we often shortchange our actors because they are so known for a role. And I'm sure Walter Koenig has love for Chekhov because it's done so many things for him.
Mm-hmm.
But he did talk about that. He was at a Babylon 5 convention once, and he felt all that love around him, and he felt like, I'm around my people. And so I'm sure he just must have a special place in his heart for Bester, because it's a really interesting role.
Yeah,
that he's really gotten to show a lot of depth. And in this one, he's not necessarily, he's still the villain as always,
mm-hmm.
but he also has a little bit of a tragic personal side that it was good to see.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. All right. Yeah, I really like this one. I was happy to rewatch it. Watched it a couple of times. I do feel, in the spirit of full transparency, as you guys are following this, you know that we're watching 12 Monkeys at the same time. And 12 Monkeys is just other world. And so we are sometimes like, God, this isn't fair. We're comparing apples and oranges, but it's sometimes we're like, wow, it's a really beautiful apple. And that's a nice orange, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
that
Yeah, it's an okay orange, but
yeah, well, but that apple.
Yep, you got to peel an orange. I want to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Everyone's excited about Fox News, ISN being back on the air. I thought that the actress they got to be the anchor was just perfect. Just the only thing you've often seen, I have seen plenty of times where they will show the blonde look of a certain news networks, right? Yeah. But her having not that look worked. It's not a big storyline, but I did think we need to touch on it. Lou, any thoughts about ISN coming back? And they're now the government propaganda wing.
Yeah, it echoes stronger today, I bet, than when it first aired, because we've seen the fragmentation of media and powered partly by social media, but just the proliferation of all these various channels. Whereas before, growing up, we had the big three, right? ABC, NBC, and CBS. Now we've got, what's the Bruce Springsteen song? 5,500 channels and there's nothing on, or whatever.
57 channels and nothing on. Yeah.
Yeah. To see this smarmy, condescending host on the ISN news was it just really hit. I don't think it's ever probably would have hit until now. So it's just very prescient from Mr. Stravinsky. And of course, he's basing it on media propaganda from World War II and that, no doubt. Yeah, it just fit very well, and it's set the tone for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, it could literally have been a broadcast of Fox News, right?
Or OAN or whatever it is.
Right? Yeah, probably more
Yes.
OAN, because
Yeah.
that one is much more a caricature of
Right.
type of news that we're talking about. But it's almost like she was telegraphing how evil she was in her delivery, which I think was definitely the
Intense.
vibe they were going for with her.
Yep.
And I thought it was interesting that Franklin was really ready to see them come back and everything must be getting better because IAN is on the air or whatever. I don't remember what it's.
ISN.
Thank you, ISN.
I assume Interstellar Network, right?
Interstellar, yeah.
Yeah, like
Space
cable
I'm
news.
guessing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I was sad to see that Franklin was gonna buy into this. It was pretty a no-brainer to realize that, yeah, they might be back, but they're not gonna be what they were before. And I'm assuming those anchors are in a dungeon somewhere. They
Yeah.
cannot, they got to be in jail because they're jailing people that have dissent. So
Yes.
it had a lot of little implications that I'm assuming we might see part of it down the road. They wouldn't drop this whole ISN storyline in without it continuing. I want to see where that part of the story is going. Are they going to be able to take the temperature of what's going on with the government through ISN? It's just an interesting little side plot.
Mhm.
Yeah. And in case our listeners are
Screaming
talking
at
to
us.
their player, it is Interstellar Network News.
And they
Okay.
use tachyon relays, which answers my question about how fast is their communication. So now we have the answer,
Mhm.
though I don't remember that ever being explicitly expressed in the show.
Yeah. Yeah, and we get another line of Susan. Sometimes I wonder why I'm a pessimist,
Mhm.
right? and just I love Susan. I love Susan's
too.
dark Russian thought. So I thought that was very telling. And now a report soon of how wonderful Marshall All is helping
Mhm.
us,
Yeah.
right?
The very
Yeah.
popular martial law.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't say anything about Babylon 5 being a rebel colony or whatever. But
Yeah, and they might later because we
Mhm.
did just see a little bit of the
Yeah.
thought.
yeah,
All right, so John's trying out the new Star Furies, right? The new kind of ships.
Mhm.
It appears the biggest change to me is it appears to be like a two-person ship versus the other was
A solo
a
cockpit.
solo cockpit, but is nice and
it can operate in atmospheres.
Yes, and I would think that is Chekhov's atmosphere,
Yeah,
right? That if you mention that sooner or later, that's going to
that's
have to
good.
come
Yeah.
through.
Mhm.
Yeah. But they run into our old friend Alfred Bester.
Speaking of Chekhov.
Yes, and oh yeah, I see what you did there. And I really loved this scene and the idea of we need to talk and why and Sheridan like we're not affiliated with anymore. What's stopping me from just blowing away? And the
Mhm.
idea your brief satisfaction isn't your curiosity worth more? And there's that beat there and then the best Jack Benny. I'm thinking it over.
Yeah.
The
I
old
love
joke.
that. That was
Yeah.
funny.
And you also just saw just a slight moment. I thought Walter played it perfect. Like, he shoot me?
Yeah.
Like this, like what?
Like until
S-
that moment, it didn't
yeah,
really sink in that he might get attacked
yeah,
until he
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, I'm thinking it over." And then
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
think
yeah,
he
"Oh."
overestimated the attractiveness of his bait for
Mhm.
sure.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, so Lou, let's keep going with you. What are your thoughts on, and we can just go, let's go up to,
Thither.
yeah, the Bester, they have a theory that he says I can't help you if you drug me, but you
Mhm.
could trust me. So
Right.
let's go all the way up to they get off in the White Star. So let's anywhere up to there. Let's visit.
Okay, so one of the questions I had from his last appearance was were they going to handle his telepathic abilities when he came back onto the show? And they took a pretty logical approach, and it was a big step for Susan to step forward and potentially reveal the fact that she was a telepath or had telepathic abilities, I should say. So that was interesting to see. And it's Bester does his homework. He knows Susan's background. He might have known it in previous appearances, but just there was no need to reference it. But in this episode, he did. And her reaction was quite good. I had to kind of laugh at the blood stain on his lips.
Good.
It looked like what it looked like. It looked like makeup, but
Mhm.
it got the point across. And Bester conveniently shows a lot of self-control in that he doesn't mentally attack Susan in any way. That was interesting, maybe a little convenient, but I went with it. But his reactions with her, and actually all of his scenes were really well done. It was a little weird, and I don't. Would this predate the Borg? This episode, I'm not sure, but I think so because Star Trek Next Generation was in the 80s, right? So that patient the telepath that they find on the ship or bring in onto the ship, and she gets all hooked into the wiring from the sick bay I was just like, oh, this is the Borg or something like that. So that was interesting. The reveal that this particular outcast telepath had a relationship with Bester was surprising. Bester just doesn't look like the romantic type to me, so I was a little taken back by that plot line, but I think Koenig sold it pretty well. So as you mentioned, Jesse, Bester's being revealed to be a multi-layered character, and it maybe I'm swayed by Walter Koenig's background. Obviously, is from Star Trek and that, but I just think he has a really good handle on this character, and I buy into pretty well everything that he does in this episode. So that was interesting, and it's pretty cool. That scene in the sick bay is what led Garibaldi to his revelation later on. So I thought that was all nicely tied together, and it was emotionally interesting because we're learning more about Bester, making him a deeper character. And then again, once they get on the Star Fury, when he sees the captain's chair. To me, that was a total Star Trek homage. You could just look at it as a power play between Bester and Sheridan, but I think the root of that scene was in the fact that Chekhov never got to sit in the captain's chair in Star Trek. So that was pretty cool to see that. And if he ever did, then my memory's failing me, but I don't remember him ever sitting in the captain's chair. I know he did in Star Trek 4 say that he was rank captain one time, but that was about as close as they got to ever having Chekhov want to be in the big chair. It was all really well done, and it hits more for me this episode than what happened in the previous episode with Michael York, where I just wasn't really buying anything that was going on with him because I just couldn't get into his acting, or can't get into his acting. And whereas with the Bester, there's been enough episodes and Koenig's got the chops to pull it off, and I just thought that he played it really well.
Yeah, one of the things, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts, Karen, is that Bester continues to not be a one-note villain, right? Like we had earlier where he actually was able to help them in this, and you can't trust him, but at the same time, he's not sneaky. There's this great scene, like, we're not expendable. If we let this go out, they might put us in the front line, and that's what you normals do. And the arrogance of, the reason you don't like us is that you're going to be replaced by us. We are the next evolutional phase. We are the superior race. And it's interesting to see him play that, just not fanatical, just matter of fact. Karen, thoughts?
Yeah, he's very oniony, very many layers to him.
Yes.
And it's almost like he's growing layers every time he appears on the show, because we have this new romantic side where we see at the level he's at, even he has to have an arranged marriage.
Right.
And the fact that, hey, there's no love there. He's, that's my obligation. That's what I do for the Corps. But this other thing is for me. And the fact that now they've done something to the woman that I love, and I put that in air quotes because I don't know exactly. Right. He hasn't professed love for her or anything, but yeah, and she was carrying his child. And so now this hits home for him. He was willing to make an alliance with B5 for the time being until this happens. And now I feel like he's all in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although there is that whole scorpion and the frog thing where once everything is over, he like you said, he makes no bones about where he is. Bones. See what I did there?
Yes, I did.
He makes no bones about the fact that he doesn't think that normals are worth anything. And once all this is done, he'll go back to what he was doing, which was trying to advance the Psi Corps into the mainstream, where the main humans thing.
And he also is very clear about his ambition at first. I'm doing this because, hey, people are getting between me and my ultimate game. My game is when telepaths are on top of the pile, I will be one of the elite and I'll be
planting the flag.
Yeah, I will be a leadership in this, if not the head person, at least among the team of elites. And so then afterwards, he is more like, okay, hey, this is now about, I want revenge. I want to revenge on that.
Now, there is one thing that bothers me about this. It's nothing big. It's just that they let Bester and G'Kar into the council in the same episode, where G'Kar has been their loyal soldier for the most part. and Bester is their enemy. And to have Bester in that room when they lead Jakar in crushed me a little bit. I feel like he deserves better than that, but I understand why they did that in the story. It's just I hated that Bester was there before him.
Yeah, Lou, thoughts on that?
I don't recall that. So
Recall what?
Bester being in the war room.
Oh yeah,
No, not at the very end, but
Right.
when, other words, when he was doing his debriefing, they included Jakar. That was my mind canon, is that because this is an important debrief, we want Jakar to hear this from the beginning.
Okay.
Not that Bester is officially part of the roundtable,
Yeah.
Okay.
but
I
just
didn't.
he's presenting.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't get
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
That's better than
yeah.
Yeah.
But I've only watched it once, so I might have missed that. But
Yeah.
I just don't recall him being in the actual war
Yeah.
team meeting, but because that was
Yeah.
at the end, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What bothered me about the episode wasn't clear to me is that ship they captured had 100 runaway telepaths on it, but at the end of the episode, when Bester leaves, they don't clearly state whatever happened to these telepaths. Did he take them all? I don't think his ship is big enough. So are they still on B5? And they've got
Yes.
now they've got these weaponized telepaths. Of course, they'll have to convince them to be part of their crusade, but that I'm assuming will be in the next couple of episodes or whatever. But that was left unclear, and I thought that was an omission that should have been at least referenced in this episode.
What I believe is, and this will come up, I don't think it's very spoilery, is they're all in a warehouse room there in Babylon 5. They have not wakened them all because they don't know how to do it without them. They've put Carolyn back to sleep. They put them back in because they don't know how to free them from all this machine and get them done.
Bester didn't even take her with him?
No, he didn't.
See, that none of that was clear to me. Maybe I just didn't catch it, but because that was the love of his life, I'm surprised that he left her behind.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And Bester comes out of this episode knowing a lot more about the Babylon 5 situation than they know about his situation, because he knows about the Star Fury, he knows about the new the White Star. So he's come away with quite a bit, and that makes me nervous.
It's worrisome for sure.
Yeah.
I was surprised that he went on the White Star, that they allowed him, but I guess there was no way around that.
Yeah.
But
and I did love their wipe off your drool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he's looking at the ship and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting to watch Bester walking around. Like, there was background stuff going on, but you could see Bester walking around. He was looking down at the Minbari at the controls there, and this is interesting.
What is the helm?
Right. What is with this vessel?
Where's the nuclear vessels?
These nuclear vessels. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it, and then I'm also really scared for what's going to happen. It's good that he's on their side because that's an asset for them, definitely, especially with what we found out later. But it's still very worrisome to me that Bester has any part in this.
Yeah. The other big thing is Jakar does say, I've been patient. My patience is running out, even though it is not running out, right? Like he made that joke about
patience is infinite, but
we're looping around. Yeah.
That was a good.
Yeah. So the big issue is the lens has to come true, and she's got to say that we knew that the shadows, the Centauri could not have destroyed you without a working with the shadows. And our thought was, we've got to let other people know, not let people know. And right, there is debate about, and I'm going to get this wrong, but right, there was a time supposedly that Britain broke a code of the German, and they allow the Germans to bomb a village even though they knew
Yep.
that they were going to do it, because that would have told them they've broken the code, right?
Right.
Yep.
So
They had to sacrifice
Yeah.
the village. Yes.
And I know there's debate on, did Churchill really know it? Whatever they're doing, it doesn't matter. The premise, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought all those scenes were really well done. That John's going, no, you're not going to do this alone. And she's like, I have to do this. And then I thought that Jakar, Andreas, is just magnificent. And when you think about it, he's got all this makeup, right? This reptilian face with red contact lenses, and he emotes so well. The idea, I understand why you had to do this, and I may be able to forgive you one day, but not today. Karen, take us through that discussion of them saying they're going to let him in, they've got to reveal, and how that all worked, and your thoughts on that storyline.
Yeah, I had to look up that town. It's Coventry that got bombed.
Yes.
And it did happen, like you said. It's just whether Churchill knew or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that conversation between Delenn and Jakar, because they both emote superbly in this scene. She is crying slowly, and you can almost see what he understands as he understands it come over his face. He sees, first of all, he sees red, like literally, that you could have told us and we could have avoided all this. And he jumps to that first thing. Why didn't you tell us we lost this? And then it slowly dawns on him that, yeah, she's right. If she had come forward, if they had revealed all this information, we wouldn't have just been conquered. We would have been annihilated by the shadows, because it would have given away her hand. And he sees that. He is not happy about it, obviously, but he understands why it happened. And he does say to her, he stresses the fact that he gets that sacrifices need to be made. I understand that. And I'm sure once we get past everything, I'll probably be able to forgive you. And that line was said so well when he says, but that day is not today. And she's crying and thanking him for understanding at least what went on, and he is resigned at that point. And that little scene between the two of them was just so impactful on this whole episode. The rest of it, I almost feel like we could throw out, because that was an incredible scene between the two of them. And our loss that both of them are no longer with us, but wow, this was probably the top of their game. Because I saw her on Lost later, Mira Furlan, and she never had scenes like this on Lost. She was cool on Lost, but this, she was definitely showing how good she was as an actress in this scene. And same with Andreas. Yeah,
I agree. Lou?
Yeah, this scene for Jakar, it was the payoff of a character arc that we've been watching over the last season and a half, and it was a wonderful payoff, because prior to what he had gone through, his typical reaction was he would have lost his cool, and I was still waiting for that to happen. I was expecting him expecting him to maybe go in a bit of a rage, but he totally kept it on under control, which is a wonderful show don't tell character beat that we get to see how much he's come through. I like that it surprised Delenn, and I also like, as Karen mentioned, that yeah, he's come a long way, but he still can't give forgiveness, but at least he has understanding. So that was really nicely done, and I expect to get that final payoff of forgiveness at some point in the series down the road. So that was really well done. Both actors were fantastic. Obviously, for Mira, because she has less makeup on, she's able to emote more, but she did a lot of it without saying anything, which is always a really strong sign of a good actor. And she played that scene really well. Andreas as G'Kar was fantastic, and I don't know how they could have done it, but I would have loved to have seen some beat with Lando in there to contrast further how these two characters have diverged from the starting of the series. But yeah, it was just a fantastic scene, and I'm glad they had that scene. And I'm a little puzzled as to why there was resistance to bringing him into the war room. Like, Sheridan made a promise, and he's been a man of his word to this point. So why has he been delaying it? And then they say that it's complicated and he's busy. And as soon as I hear that kind of talk, I'm going, no, that's just TV talk for unnecessary delay. So I was a little put off by the fact that he actually hasn't been in the warm room yet. But the payoff is that when he does come, we get Garibaldi's revelation of the shadows are afraid of telepaths. So that's a good payoff. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. I thought it all played out rather well, and just a wonderful scene. Again, can't really say enough about it. It's probably was a wonderful day for those two actors to come onto the set and play that scene out. And I don't know how they stage it or discuss it. Would it be interesting to find out the behind the scenes of how they worked out how to handle that? So that a lot of that would rely on the director choosing what camera angles to shoot, and I assume it was a multi-camera shot because the cuts back between the two characters were pretty seamless. And it felt like it was all one take, but just done with multiple cameras. So I'm assuming that's how they did it. But it was just a really well done scene from not just the actors, but the director and the crew and everybody, and the editing afterwards. So really well done.
And it also felt like I'm hoping you guys understand what I'm saying when I say this, a small scene, compact, just very intimate scene. But it also was very large. Yep. It felt big, like this big revelation for him, but it also felt super intimate. And I really hope that those two actors gave each other hugs after the scene was done, because I can imagine how emotional that would be, just being that close to someone and saying those lines and taking on that emotion. It was just very
good point. Like the subtext is huge, because Delenn, we know how she feels, how the Minbari feel about life in general, and treating each other with respect in that, and the fact that she had to make this decision that cost millions of lives that's really tough for her. And for G'Kar, the realization that his people were in for a world of hurt no matter which way the scenario played out, and it was just the lesser of two evils. It's a pretty bitter pill for them to have to swallow.
So from Lurker's Guide, first off, JMS talks a little bit about that these three episodes, Veer, Avalon, and Chip, all different feel. And as a writer, he thinks that's the way to do. You have to stretch your muscles, and you may fall on your face, but that's how you learn. But he said, I did not give Mira or Andreas any instructions on that scene except what was in the script, which was minimal. When you have two performers that solid in the room, just give them their lines and run like hell.
That's awesome.
Cool.
So even
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how they chose to play those characters. And it just shows how solid their handle on their character is.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an honesty to that scene because of that. Yeah.
There truly is. And I love how both of them, the emotion is so raw. And I agree with you. I do think that it's always quiet when you film, right? But I can imagine the cast, anyone watching, or the crew just sitting there holding their breath. And then, okay, did we get it? Did we get it? Because that was wonderful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just like that further.
Yeah.
I think that scene's a great encapsulation of when drama or storytelling it works at its best, because one of my favorite lines from Stephen King is fiction is the truth inside the lie. And
Yes.
this Babylon 5 universe doesn't really exist and whatnot, but
Right.
it's the stage for exploring and expressing real, true human fears and foibles. And that's the heart of this scene for both these characters and for the series. And it was just really well done. Beautifully done.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Then we get the reveal that, and I thought it was played really well, that we had established when G'Kar went through his incarceration, he had given the Book of G'Quan to Garibaldi. And
who's been underused this season, if I may say.
Yes. And to have him, there was something.
He had the broken arm.
Yeah, but I think it's great that too often, right, we would have, I'm not reading this book. He respected G'Kar so much he was, and like going back, I know I saw something, I know something. And then Doyle's arrogance, right? Like, I need you guys to come. So he's sitting there and they acknowledge that. You look like the proverbial cat that's eating the curry. And then you have the great line, do not thump the book.
Yeah, right? It's disrespectful.
Yes. And it is.
And it just shows there's comedy mixed in, but it's a one-off line where you smile and then you realize there's gravity to this scene as well, which that's awesome about this show.
Yeah.
So it turns out the shadows don't like telepaths. And Karen, let's dwell about this a little bit.
Yeah. This has been a long time threading in and out where we learn that, okay, in the very, very early part of this show, G'Kar hits on Talia, right? I think it's Talia, I'm not sure, because he wants to get telepathic information in order to maybe make more telepaths on Narn. So we get that so early on. Yes? In the pilot. Okay. So in the pilot, they're dropping this hint that they did have telepaths, but they don't anymore. And it's here and there, we see little bits and pieces about telepath here. Is the telepath going to go to Narn? There's this whole conversation about this little telepath girl. And hey, we would love to have you on Narn because we had telepaths. We don't anymore, blah, blah. She doesn't go there. It's another seed in our ear of. And then we finally get in this episode where it's brought together. Yes, the shadows conquered them many years ago. And G'Quan brought them back, but couldn't bring back telepaths. And the reason that all happened is because they were used by the shadows to do whatever they did 1,000 years ago. And so now they don't have any. And it was so interesting to see this whole thing come back and coinciding with the fact that Jakar is now part of the War Council. It just, I felt like it all came to a really nice little bundle that kind of got sewed up there right at that one point. He gives the book of Jaquan to him, which leads into this knowledge, which leads into this knowledge. It ties all the way back to the pilot. And so I thought it was really cool to see that whole thing. And now we have a better understanding of what his investment in getting telepaths in Narn would have done. It would have given them more security. So I loved seeing that kind of twisty thing happening in this episode, and it was just great. And I did love that line, "Do not thump the book of Jaquan." It is disrespectful. It was very cute. And also it's very Garibaldi of him to have his feet up on the counter and, hey, I have the solution right here. Boom, boom. And he taps the book, and then of course, Bruce Boxleitner reading the line, "By God, we have a weapon." Hello. You can't get any more victorious in that moment. They finally know there's a way they can beat the shadows. So cool. Now, why didn't Kosh give them all this information? Because I'm assuming he knows a lot of this stuff. We haven't seen much of Kosh lately.
Kosh is a jerk, right?
I agree, 100%.
Yes, Kosh. He's the Gandalf of the series. Gandalf is supposed to be so powerful, but he rarely uses his magic except in dire circumstances, and he's really only there to guide the people that are there. And I think I don't know if GMS has ever talked about Kosh as a character and referenced Gandalf, because I think the parallels are pretty strong. Gandalf just outright could have done a lot more in any given scene, but he was just there to provide moral support in a lot of cases for the regular folk of Middle-earth. So I find that interesting, and Kosh is definitely playing out that same role for me anyhow. As to the scene and the revelation about the Narn telepaths being wiped out, I thought that was a great payoff for something that the seed had been planted, as you mentioned, Jesse, all the way back in the pilot. I really like that, and it's interesting that the Narn themselves, and maybe this is just a little bit of subterfuge by JMS, but I think it would have been pretty obvious to the Narn why they had lost all their telepathic abilities. So that was downplayed, and I guess he didn't want to reveal that until this moment. But so that was a little bit of, okay, that's a little bit of withholding information from the viewers that, it's a little disingenuous, but I can live with it because the reveal was so good. What else? The war room, like they talk about it in terms that it's secret, but when you walked into the room, there were all these technicians in the background. So I'm going, and especially since you broke off with Earth, is this really still a secret with anymore? And why is it a secret? Because you've broken from Earth. There's no need to be subtle about it anymore. And so maybe I just misread that, but the conversations between Delenn and Jakar made it sound like they were still trying to keep the council secret. I don't know, maybe I was just a little confused on that point. I
don't think it's secret anymore, but Jakar wasn't invited to the meetings, right? Like he knew there was a meeting going on, and now then, hey, when am I going to be part of the team? So when do I get the secret handshake and the key to the meeting room?
Mm-hmm. And now I want to find out how Londo's going to react about this war.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we get the Shadows have now attacked. They are no longer on the sidelines. They are attacking Bakar, I think. I can't remember.
Bakiri?
Bakiri, yeah. And they show Yeah.
Was that attack predicated because of what happened in this episode? Is that is this the catalyst that they know what they know?
Maybe, I don't know. It's left vague that
The timing
whatever,
is interesting.
yeah, it does seem that, and it could be just, okay, we've talked about the Shadow War long enough. It's time to, all right, we need to move forward.
Mhm.
So that's the only thing I could think might be happening.
Mm.
And they
Yeah,
and it's just surmised by Ivanova, but that they sensed Bester on the White Star. And I
Yeah.
think maybe they know the jig is up, and so they gotta get on their attack as soon as
Yeah.
possible. That's just what my supposition is. So
yeah, and I'm not sure if it's important why it happens now, as it is.
right.
And so our next step is that now then we're at war. And so we will have to see what goes on.
And are the
Go ahead.
Brakiri, are they on the side of the War Council yet? Have we gotten that? That's one of the races that Sheridan talked to in the room. I'm hoping they signed the charter.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would think so.
We didn't hear whether anybody had declined to sign the charter or not,
Yeah,
but at least that happened before this. So now hopefully they're part of that
yeah.
alliance. And anyway, I don't know why it struck me that I hope they were, but
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Anything else we need to talk about in this one?
Mm. No.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Yeah.
oh,
Not
what about
yes.
MedLab 1? Are we done with MedLab 1 now? Because
Yeah, boy, it sure looks.
it got
looks tough.
decimated, right?
It sure did. Yeah.
Good thing
Yeah.
there's more than one MedLab.
Yeah, exactly.
Boy, that was just redesigned, right? They just refurbished MedLab 1. And
Yeah.
now all the stuff got ripped out of everywhere. What a shame.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Like what?
Right.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That's a good point about the MedLab 1 being a new set. Also, the War Room is a new set as well. It'll be interesting to see how often they're going to be using that.
Yeah, and it is absolutely a round table.
Yeah.
Hmm? Yeah.
And so if we were trying to, if they're trying to do this, they are showing very clearly.
Camelot. We're
Yeah,
talking
this
about
is Camelot. Yeah, we're not. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that Bester also brings up the cask of Amontillado,
Yes.
because that story, very famously, it's about manipulation and using it to kill
somebody.
someone
Yep.
that
Yeah.
and to do it in a very underhanded way.
Yeah.
Is that a foreshadowing moment as well? It's not like the dude went and stabbed his friend.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
very sneakily talked him into being walled
Very low.
into this little place. So yeah, that I thought, are they planting that seed here for any reason?
Yeah,
So
because we
anyway,
haven't got the payoff yet. So
right.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it.
good
I
point,
think-
Karen.
Yeah, really good point. I love that. It's a great line that they're sharing that, right? This whole, and Poe is so well known.
Mhm.
I thought that was just really a fun moment.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
like how he drops these literary things into these episodes. We had the Scottish play, and
Yeah.
Marcus is reciting lines from it, and then we have Bester
Yeah.
being very literate as well. It's very cool to see as a book person, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
I agree.
I went through a very, very prolific Poe period And I guess my middle school years, I read
Mhm.
all the Poe I could get my hands on. And that's one that the Telltale Heart and the Cask of Amontillado are the two that kind of creep me out the most.
Yeah, I can see that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're ones that are just sinister, just super sinister and believable. Those are the ones that are like, yeah, that could really happen. It's not otherworldly.
Yeah. I think anybody that reads goes through a Poe phase, and it was a little bit reinforced for me with Alan Parsons' Tales of Mystery and Imagination album, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
as well.
I love Alan Parsons.
Yeah. Good. All right. I think we're up to where we should rate.
Yeah.
So, Lou, do you want to go first?
Oh, thank you, because I was afraid somebody's going to steal mine, and I think it's pretty obvious what mine's going to be. Okay. One more thought before I do rate, though, is I'm wondering where Bester's head at is now. Is he, because he knows about the telepaths being the Achilles heel of the shadows, is he going to fight his own war on Earth? Maybe try to overthrow the government there? I don't. This is what he's been looking for. Now, like the Psi Corps are totally geared towards this kind of action. So it will be interesting to see what his arc in the rest of the series is going to be. Yeah, that's going to be cool. All right, so I'm going to give this 8 captain's chairs.
Nice.
Okay, I will give it 8. And I looked this up. It's the name of the new Star Fury. It's called the Thunderbolt.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Thunderbolt.
Because
Thunderbirds are alive.
Yeah, it has the atmospheric wing thing. So I'll give it 8 Thunderbolts.
Cool.
Good. Yeah, I'm a little bit higher, but not by much. I'm going to give it 8.5. Thumping holy books.
That's disrespectful, Jesse.
It is 8. Okay, 8.5 disrespectful thumping holy books.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was, I really like this one. I think it was they're moving on, right? They're getting to the next phase, which I think is really well done.
And I feel like we're getting a lot of information here.
Yeah, we're getting payoffs now.
Yeah.
Sure. So very nice.
I just want to see Garibaldi play a bigger role than he has so far in this season.
I'm hoping now that he has the cast off.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we have some feedback, don't we, Karen?
We do.
Okay.
I have 2. Is that?
Yes.
Okay,
that is correct.
Great. So from Texas Anashock, they say, so we finally find the Shadow's weakness. This is something that's been hinted at Talier's reaction to Morden's presence, why Ivanova drew their attention while she was in the Great Machine, for example. I still maintain that she pulled the information of the Shadows' dealings with Clark directly from them. They finally bring G'Kar in, something they've been putting off for months, since it means having a very difficult conversation with him, something neither Sheridan nor Delenn has been looking forward to. G'Kar takes it as well as can be expected. Kosh primed him for this, but that doesn't preclude the fact that he has internalized the genuine wisdom of it and has now made it his own. And I find it very appropriate that Sir G'Kar, the Red Knight, is present when the new round table is revealed. And I love all of Bester's literary references. Hey, thanks, Texas. Again, this is the first time I'm reading it.
Yeah.
I love all of Bester's literary references. I had to read The Cask of Amontillado in English class, so I got the reference. I also like his little moment of uncertainty when he isn't sure if Sheridan is actually going to fire or not. What he says about Caroline, that she's the, quote, one shining light, unquote, of his life, implies that he, despite his assertions that he sleeps well and believes he is doing good work, is a very unhappy person. I guess the Corps breathes it into its members, especially the high-level ones. And we also get a reminder that despite Bester having a pretty high rank, he's not in charge. As for why no one's thought of using telepaths before, I actually have a theory about that, but I can't discuss it yet. So keep tuning in, same bad time, same bad channel to find out what it is. Until then, the war has finally started, so we'll see how adept you are at stacking marbles in a corner. Oh man, you always give us hints, Texas. This is the Texas
Yes, they
Amistad
do.
signing off in Valen's name. Because he
Nice.
mentioned the cask of Amontillado in the last email, and now we're going to do some marble stacking, I'm guessing, in the next episode.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
And from David Darnell. So we come to another normal day at Babylon 5. Then Bester shows up. This is me, Karen, talking. I would assert that is a normal day on Babylon 5. That same shit, different day. Isn't that the
Yes.
thing? Yeah. I have to wonder, how did Bester know that Sheridan was out and about in a Thunderbolt? It was fairly clear from the dialogue he was expecting Sheridan. Or did he just figure that whomever would respond to his distress call would take him to B5? Have to wonder who Bester scanned to get the information that weapons components were being shipped, or was that just a convenient excuse to get B5 to rescue the telepaths? Was Bester actually in love with Carolyn, or was she just a blip being used for a breeding program because of her high Psy-Core rating? If I recall correctly, the same as Bester, which IMO would explain his attraction to her. Was he giving her special treatment in order to make her more compliant to becoming pregnant by him? Any way you look at it, it's at best borderline rape, IMO. By the way, this does have some basis in history, Nazi Germany, of course. Who is doing the altercations for the shadows? Will we see more of them in the future? Alterations, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, who did all that Borg stuff for them? The scene with Bester in the captain's chair was a bit of a swipe at Star Trek. Chekhov never got to sit in the captain's chair there. Having G'Kar on the War Council will be interesting. Will he push for hitting the shadows or the Centauri first? G'Kar reminds me, do not thump the book of Jaquan. That means you, Jesse. Enough of these slow plodding episodes where not much happens. Hopefully something exciting will happen next week. So thank you, David. I think we like the episode a little bit more than David does, but...
Yeah, I found that David at times is a little tougher than we are. And...
I was tough.
Yeah.
That's good. I love having all these different
viewpoints. I do too. Yes, we love getting feedback. jklb5podcast@gmail.com. Please send us your thoughts of upcoming episodes or past episodes. We would love to hear your thoughts. If someone wants to reach you, Karen, how can they?
What was there any feedback on the YouTubes?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a couple of good comments there. Mr. Deland says Karen prompted him. She said something about that she commented that Garibaldi was getting paid more than an average guy. Question is, who is paying? With them breaking away from the EA, doubt they are. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if they have their accounts frozen back on Earth. So where is the money coming from? That's an interesting question. That might be just an oversight. And then there's a couple of references to the episode. I'm sorry, I'm talking about a late delivery from Avalon. That there was a Monty Python vibe to the episode a little bit. SM Dog says, in a way, the Rangers seem to be modeled after the Knights of the Round Table. At least there were no coconuts. But we do have the thumping of the Book of Jaquan.
Yeah.
So that's it. Yeah. So good stuff. Thanks, everyone. Keep those comments coming on YouTube as well as your emails.
Absolutely. I love the community we have built. Karen, someone wants to reach you?
I am at Oliveria on the various social medias. In my Twitter bio, you can find a link to my blog, which is olliestuff.com. And the landing page has a list of a bunch of links you might find interesting.
Very nice. Lou?
You can find us on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, where you'll find the episodes of the Babylon 5 podcast, as well as our JKL Media podcast, where we're currently working through 12 Monkeys. And there's some other podcasts where I do writer interviews, Stephen King podcast. And on Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sytsma, Sytsma. Oh, and Jesse, before we go, I think you should give us a little non-spoiler review of your Blu-ray disc that you picked up.
I would love that. For those of you who are not watching, yes.
Pretty.
Yes, let me
Sorry to bring you out so late in the episode.
No, I really appreciate that. Yeah, here we go. Here's the Blu-ray. It is definitely spoilery. So if you, I do think and part of the reason why it's so spoilery is they have made it, if you've never watched Babylon 5, they give you enough at the beginning of kind of a summary of the 5 years so that you're not totally lost. So yes, you need to stay away from it. It is, as they talked about, that it is a jump in alternate time universes, but I think that the actors who took over for the Fallen Comrades sounded close enough. In other words, they did not try to mimic them. They just did them and caught the feel. I really enjoyed it. It was a quick, little bit over an hour. I thought the story and the end of it, and we have talked about this vaguely, that the series in 5 years wraps up the story. And so you get a ending. And so it would be very hard to do a series of what happens next because we already know what happens next. And you could possibly do stories in the between I want to be vague, like that happens during this time period till we get to the ending. But they give us a kind of trap door that if we wanted to do a series of alternate universe, there is a place where there's some really interesting stories that they could tell.
Is it a best of both worlds vibe, or?
Yeah, a little bit. And the one we get to see, there's clips out there. Sheridan gets to interact with a lot of people that you wouldn't have thought he would have got to interact with. And so I like that a lot. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thought it was fun. For the people that say it's not very deep, I think that's a fair statement. But I also think we're trying to get this where it's open to people to new in the world. Right. So yeah, very happy, very good. And
animation?
Animation is very solid. I am not a big fan of necessarily fight scenes, but there is some really beautiful in-space battles between different ships fighting. And so, yeah, I was very happy with it. I don't know how any Babylon 5 fan who has seen the whole series wouldn't be happy with it. So it's good. And the theory is he believes, according to Twitter, JMS says that we could probably do, if there's enough sales, he thinks they could do a couple a year and just do a series of exploring different realms.
That's
so
cool.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Is the music the same as the series, or is there new stuff? Or?
No, it's a new composer, and it fit well. I know you aren't as a big fan of the music on the current Babylon 5, but yeah, it was really well done. I thought that we got some nice scenes from Londo, and Claudia Christian has some really good scenes. I like her a lot. The guy who does Delenn and Steven and G'Kar all did well. They're different actors, and so it's good. We get a couple of scenes of Marcus, but it isn't done by the actor. But there was like almost 5 words that he says at one point. So he said I couldn't get everyone back.
The actor's still alive, right?
Yeah.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Okay.
He talked about that it took Star Trek years before they lost someone. And with them, they lost anywhere. In fact, the very last scene is a tribute to all the actors we've lost.
No.
Cool. And it is they show their names.
Mhm.
And when you think about it, it's just so many, like
Mm.
Jerry Joel, Stephen Furst,
Vera.
Richard Biggs, Andreas, Mira. Yeah,
Yeah.
so many. Oh, Jeff Conway.
Right?
Yeah, and the guy who plays Zathras, which Tim Colte, I think. So yeah,
Mm.
they had
Wow.
lost a lot of people. Yeah, and if you're a Zathras fan, Zathras has a lot of fun scenes in the movie.
Cool.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm
Special
very happy
features
with it.
or
Yeah, I haven't got to hear them yet, but there is a commentary featuring JMS, Bruce Boxleiter, and Rick Morales. And
Hmm.
then there is a featurette, Babylon 5 Forever, which I haven't got to watch yet.
Hmm.
This was a very busy week. As we mentioned, I went to Louisiana to see my mom.
Hmm.
I had to see the movie when it came in. I stayed up to watch it. And then yesterday, I rewatched the Babylon 5 episodes and did 3.5 of the 12 Monkeys. I like a couple of them I skipped through, but I got to see because we were going through 4 of those, and I wanted to be fresh with those for our discussion this morning.
All right. Very good.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, now you can sign off.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad you asked. All right, listeners, please reach out. Let us know what you're thinking. Next week is a big one. Spoilers. We have a good one.
Okay.
And we will visit with you next week. For now, be kind, be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Yay.
Bye.
Yay. Yeah.
And see.